We celebrate Juneteenth, and how do we celebrate Juneteenth? Well, the only way that a holiday that was pushed to the forefront by leftoids could possibly be celebrated by making something happen that goes right in with the political narrative. So we'll be talking a lot about Juneteenth, some of the celebrations, some of the, we'll actually be talking about some of the history of it as well and some of the commentary about that. But we will go over everything that has happened on this, the holiest of holidays. In other news, a submersible touring the Titanic wreckage has disappeared right about in the region that the Titanic went down. So we'll be talking about that and what's happening with that and some of the people who were on board and where we go with that. A doctor who is pro-vaccine makes an allegation against Joe Rogan, to which Joe Rogan challenges him to a debate with RFK, and the media melts down. So we'll go over what that means and where we go with that. And DACA turns 11, but this being a presidential election year means that it also comes back out, and it gets to be used as a cudgel against the current incumbent and the people who are challenging him. It is going to be all of this and more. Happy Juneteenth, everybody. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. If you ever check out the Instagram that goes with this channel, which is at JEdgar102, just like my Twitter, it's a bit of an interesting thing because, when I get done with the cold open, I throw the title card up. Those of you watching the main channels all see that. On Instagram, there is no title card. I could probably whip something up on a card and hold it up in front of the screen while I go back and do everything else or something like that. But they just, because they can't hear the music either, they see me dancing. They don't know what's going on. And I've talked about this before. It has got to be the wildest thing to watch the replay of the stream on Instagram. And people do. People watch it. I see the numbers and it goes up. But yeah, they can't hear the music. They can't see anything. They just see me sitting here. Usually I take a drink of something. Usually I go over and look at all the monitors. But yeah, if you want it behind the scenes, check out the Instagram. I share memes there sometimes, so you can go back and check that out. I share them a lot to Snapchat too, but that's not something that's going to be made out and made public. My Snapchat is just for people that I know and, girls that I want to know, apparently. So we've got that going on, but we aren't here to talk about all of the behind the scenes. We're here to talk about the news, and it's been a full day. I got everything set up today. Number one, I got out of work late as usual, but number two, we loaded the news stack up again over the past couple days, so there is a lot to talk about here. I'm really glad that I did the makeup stream on Saturday because, we would not be getting to everything again today if I was still trying to go over those 22 articles that we went over on Saturday. There's no way. The makeup stream is up on Spotify, by the way, if you guys want to go and check that out. Spotify, I believe the lookup is Contemporary with Jay Edgar. And you have to do the with Jay Edgar to find, you'll see the title card as soon as it pops up there, but you can go check us out over there. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, Stitcher. You can go check us out on all those. I think I'm going to see if I can get Podbean to put us on Pandora too for free, because from what I understand, that's another place that people go back and listen to podcasts. It's not as big as Spotify, partially because it doesn't have Rogan, and we'll be talking about Rogan later. But we'll go over there. And if there's another podcatcher you like to use, I will look through Podbean's library and see if it's actually supported by Podbean. I would do that for you. I have no problem going back and doing that for you guys, just to make it convenient for you. Otherwise, you can always check us out live or on replay. You can check us on the main channels, YouTube, DLive, Twitch. There's a Twitter stream somewhere. I just don't know where it goes. You can go to the Facebook fan page. Ed's World 101 is the Facebook fan page if you want to go over there and see the stream. Otherwise, you can see the replays on YouTube, Rumble, and also over on the Facebook page. You can go check out all of that. We're not on BitChute because I don't know why my BitChute doesn't pull from YouTube, but for whatever reason it doesn't. But with that, we have news to go over here, so we're going to get into that. And let's get started, shall we? Before we do, as always, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Brit, who shared this stream out, by the way, The No Gimmicks Podcast, Mr. Behavior, Silent Caster, and Clown World Chronicles with Papa Palpatine. Go check out all that great programming as we bring you a better news experience from the common man for the common man. That is right. Stop getting your news from people who hate you and wear suits that cost more than your house. Get your news from people who are just like you. And let's get into it. Let's get started. Get into the news scene. Hey, look, that's me. Some more behind the scenes stuff. And let's go. We're going to start with finance, even though the markets were closed today. So let's get this up. Let's get the live chat up. See what you guys are doing over there. And if you guys do want to come back in and chat, we'll go through some of this. We will have a dedicated segment to the live chat at the end of the show. So I don't get to your live chat midstream. I will be getting to it at the end of the show. So definitely come back and have a conversation. If there's something that you want to say, we'll get everything read. We're on Odyssey too, by the way. You can go check us out over there. Not too many people do check us out over there, but if you do want to go check us out and chat, we will check that at the end of the night. We'll check in with whoever's watching over on Instagram. So we've got a lot to go over here today, and let's get into it and let's get started. Mogwai says, Saturday's stream was great. Nice change of pace. Yeah, and it was a little bit short too. I want to go back to playing video games on Saturday, but it's just been too nice out to go back and do that. You know, do a couple hours, and, well, I need to get a new controller for Legend of Zelda because the other one bought the farm, but yeah, I want to get back to that. I want to do maybe some new games that I've never played before. I want to do a run through StarCraft too, by the way. Just to keep myself accountable and keep me playing, you know, instead of just getting started and never finishing. All right, anyway, let's get into it. On the Dow, this is still Friday's chart, so we're still looking at the exact same chart that we looked at. 34,299.12. The futures are open at this point, so we'll be seeing what changes going off with that. But it did jump up. It stayed up throughout most of the day of trading yesterday before sinking and trailing off at the very, very end. So we will see what happens with the finance and where that goes. Looking in at your Bitcoin. Your Bitcoin is... Today has been a bit of a roller coaster. It stayed relatively down throughout the day before spiking up and then slamming back down and spiking back up again at the end of the day. Going out on your 5-day, looks like over the weekend, we had one shoot up on Friday, another mild shoot up here on Saturday, and then it stayed steady throughout the weekend because, of course, the Bitcoin trades over the weekends and does not close for Juneteenth because it is a global market. Looking at your gas prices, and then I will be going in and checking your live chat here in just a second. Across the Madison area, we are unchanged from Friday with a 330 outlier and a 337 outlier. We've got one small change over there on the east side and 340 on the west side of Madison. Remember, these prices may not reflect your local markets. Check your local listings to see where gas prices are, but this will give you an idea of where they will fall by watching a pattern over one market. Day over day, weekday over weekday. Grant says, which made up Black American holiday do you prefer, Kwanzaa or Juneteenth? I'm going to say Kwanzaa just because it's much, much more entertaining to make fun of people over Kwanzaa, which, again, they have no idea what it is. Grant says, for new game, play Zelda. I would actually need to get a Switch to play the new Zelda. I do want to take some time and get a Switch and a Wii and a Wii U and play all the rest of the Zeldas. And I do, by the way, also need to get, because I have no problem going and getting a capture card and playing stuff off my PS2 and off my GameCube. But my GameCube needs a new optical drive, so that needs to get over. I found a place to do it. It's $80, so that's 4 times what I paid for the GameCube, by the way. But, I mean, where else it's either that or go on eBay and spend $1,000 on a new GameCube, so yeah, that's going to be coming down the pipes. I want to do that. I want to play some of these games that I've never played before. A lot of them like that I've started too, and just never finished because life got in the way. Final Fantasy X, Kingdom Hearts. I want to play those on stream because I know it's the only way that I'll finish them. So I think that's going to be our winter project, definitely. Grant says, is Juneteenth the anti-Father's Day holiday? You know, I had an article from CNN talking about how black fathers are actually more involved in their children's lives than white fathers. I decided against it just because of YouTube censors. Well, it says too soon, Grant, too soon. Grant says, why would the stock market close for Juneteenth? That's not where American blacks keep their wealth. Yes, but it's a federal holiday now, so it's closed for all federal holidays. Yep, Mogwai got it too. It's a federal holiday. All right, let's get into the news. Looking at your markets report for the day from IBD, Dow futures fall, market strong, but here's what to do. AMD, Boeing lead stocks to watch. I love that. Futures fall, but the market is strong. If the futures are falling, the market is not that strong. From Ed Carson, Dow futures fell slightly Monday along with the S&P and the NASDAQ. The stock market rally showed strong, broad action last week, running up past a surprisingly hawkish Federal Reserve. That raises confidence in the uptrend's longer-term prospects, but with the NASDAQ extended, the odds of a market pullback are elevated in the short term. Friday may have reflected the start of a slide, but that wasn't much of one. A pullback could create a new buying opportunity in the leading stocks, many of which are currently far extended from any entry, but in the short run, investors should be cautious about making new purchases, especially in hot areas. Boeing is trading right around a buy point, and its rival Airbus will likely announce a bevy of new orders at the Paris Air Show, which kicked off on Sunday. McKesson broke out of a consolidation, while Smith & Nephew is trading above a trendline entry. Marriott, Chipotle, Boyd Gaming, and Floor & Decor are near buy points. All 7 stocks are from non-tech areas of market leadership. Really? Boyd Gaming is non-tech? Okay. I guess I don't know what Boyd Gaming is, but I would have thought that one for sure would have been a tech one. Meanwhile, AMD, Samsara, and Rambus are 3 hot stocks that are starting to pull back. But many leaders are not retreating. Nvidia hit a fresh record high on Friday, surging 10% for the week. Meta marked a 16-month best before closing a fraction lower on Friday. Tesla, after 2 tiny losses, ended a record 13-day win streak and rose to a fresh 8-month high on Friday. Tesla, Meta, and Nvidia are on the IBD leaderboard. CMG is on the IBD watch list. MCK was added to Swing Trader on Friday, joined by Boeing and FND. Chipotle and IoT are on the IBD 50. Chipotle and Tesla are on the IBD Big Cap 20. McKesson was Friday's IBD stock of the day. On the futures, Dow futures fell 0.3 versus fair value. The S&P declined 0.2 and the NASDAQ dipped 0.2. Crude oil fell a fraction. Markets were closed on Monday for the Juneteenth holiday, but other exchanges around the world were open. Dow futures have been trading normally, which means they started on Sunday. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. Okay, they run casinos. That's why they're not tech. Huh, interesting. I'd never heard of them before. All right, and our layoffs report today is a local one for me. Well, local isn't 2 hours away, but still a local one for me. From WEAU 13 News, the local NBC affiliate from Eau Claire, 50 more workers to be laid off at HTI in Eau Claire, which is, for HTI, a significant number. From Lindsay Alawirdy, That's a weird name. Hutchinson Technology Incorporated says it will lay off an additional 50 employees. In a letter to the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development, Connie Potts, Vice President of Human Resources, says HDI will be restructuring and reducing its workforce at its facility, located at 2435 Alpine Road in Eau Claire. HDI currently has an approximately 182 employees at this location, which, yes, that means that's just a bit short of, a bit over a quarter of their employees are all going to be gone. Potts says they expect this workforce reduction will result in the permanent layoff of 50 employees. The affected employees have also been provided with notice. The company estimates the layoffs will begin on August 18th, 2023, and to be completed by September 1st, 2023. In March, HTI announced it planned to start permanently laying off 237 employees beginning in May. Which, HTI, I mean, it's not just in Eau Claire, it's all over the place. The Eau Claire branch is, from what I understand, for them a relatively small area, but the fact that they're putting that much focus on such a small outlet for them, well, it saves a lot of jobs in some of the bigger outlets, but that's probably going to be quite devastating to that community too. Eau Claire is a small city. I think it's only like 40K. So to dump 50 good paying jobs in the city, and one of the leading employers in that city, it's going to take effect. We will see what happens with that and where that goes. That is your layoffs report for the day. We're going to start with the story out of Washington today from ABC News. 2 dead, suspect detained in shooting at Gorge Amphitheater campground, sheriff says. From Kevin Shalvey. A suspect was detained after at least 2 people were killed during an active shooter situation at a campground near the Gorge Amphitheater on Saturday in Washington, the sheriff said. Officers pursued, closed in on the suspect, and have the suspect in custody. Multiple individuals have gunshot wounds, the Grant County Sheriff's Office said in a Facebook post at around 10:50 p.m. 3 others, including the alleged shooters, were injured, said Kyle Foreman, a spokesperson for the sheriff's office. The suspect opened fire at about 8:28 p.m. in an area about 100 yards from the venue, Foreman said during a press briefing. After the alleged shooter walked away, law enforcement officials arrived and tracked the suspect down. Foreman said the suspect continued to shoot randomly into the crowd before being taken into custody. The sheriff had earlier posted there was an active shooter at Gorge Amphitheater, adding, "If at Gorge, seek cover, run, hide, or fight the suspect." Pretty sure that the people at the Gorge Amphitheater were not reading their social media at that time. The open-air venue, which can host up to 27,500 people, was scheduled on Saturday to host Beyond Wonderland, an electronic dance festival. Please avoid the Gorge Gate H campgrounds as it is closed due to an incident that's been handled by local authorities. Beyond Wonderland said on Twitter, "There's no current danger to festival goers or the campgrounds." Promoters of the EDM festival announced Sunday morning that the second day of the festival has been canceled due to the incident that took place in the overflow camping area. We would like to express our sincere appreciation to the local authorities and staff who acted quickly and managed the situation, the promoter said in a statement. Our heartfelt thoughts and condolences go to the family, friends, and all those affected by this tragic event. What's interesting about this is they say the suspect is in custody. As far as I know, they are not talking about who the suspect is. We've got some latest updates here. Let's listen to the video, because there is no text to this one. Volume.
Proctor. Let's get right now to what we know at this hour. There has been an active shooter situation at the Gorge Amphitheater in Grant County. We are now less than 30 minutes away from our first press conference with the Grant County Sheriff's Office. And that's right, you heard me correctly. There is an active shooter investigation at one of Washington's biggest concert venues. This is the alert people see right now on the Grant County Sheriff's Office Facebook page. Here are the headlines that we know at this hour. First, the sheriff's office says the suspect is in custody. Second, just moments ago, within the last 10 minutes, we learned from investigators 5 people have been shot. Third, the shooting happened at the campground, not the amphitheater itself. So tonight's show is still going on. Fourth, because of this active shooter situation, Gate H at the complex is closed. Beyond Wonderland, which is the event that is happening at the Gorge, tweeted out an update. In addition to referencing that Gate H is closed, it also says there is no current danger to festival goers or the campgrounds. Again, let's now give you a better idea of where this shooting happened. The investigation is being centered on the campground, which is adjacent to the amphitheater. Now, again, we do want to repeat to you that this happened in the campground and not at the concert venue. Once again, there's been an active shooter situation at the Gorge Amphitheater near George. The Grant County Sheriff's Office says the shooter is in custody. And again, in that latest update, we have found out that there have been five people with injuries. The shooting happened at the campground. One very big question tonight that we're still continuing to bring in the latest information regarding this situation. We do have 2 crews heading right now to the scene at this very moment. We also have someone that will be there when the press conference starts with the sheriff's office around 11:30 tonight. Be sure to stay with us right here on KREM 2 News at 11.
The biggest question, and she never got to seeing what the biggest question, I'm guessing, is why? Why would somebody come back out and do this? I don't know. It's a little bit interesting, the fact that they've released no details about the suspect, in spite of the fact that they have in custody. But I'm pretty sure that if we did a little bit of scratching on the surface, we would know why. From King 5 calls for change after mass confusion led to panic at Gorge Campground shooting. From Maddie White. After 2 people were killed and 3 others injured in a shooting near an electronic dance festival at the amphitheater Saturday night, festival goers are calling for a change. It was really scary, said Jesse Radley, a festival goer. Authorities said the suspect fired randomly into a crowd at the overflow campsite, said Kyle Foreman, public information officer for the Grant County Sheriff's Office. That's not our community, Radley said. That's not part of who the community is. The music festival, Beyond Wonderful, is hosted annually at the Gorge Amphitheater and is produced by Insomniac Events. But even if an event is held again next year, even the most diehard of EDM fans told King 5 they're not sure they want to go back. It's going to depend a lot on what we see come from the company that hosted this, said Christy, who attended the festival with her husband and teenage children. It was really uncomfortable, and it went for too long. I mean, this morning we woke up to, they didn't even publish on their public page. Still didn't say anybody was shot. The group canceled the last day of the festival after the deadly mass shooting at the campground, which happened about a 10-minute walk from the concert venue. Shaken up festival goers told King 5 the mass confusion ensued and led to the sleepless night for many campgrounds. Some, like Hale, even heard the initial gunfire, but at first thought they were fireworks. And I went, oh, I missed fireworks, Hale said, but it's not dark yet. Like, why are they doing fireworks? We're not ready. And then like maybe 20 minutes later, I heard it again. But still no information on the suspect. So, and there are a couple different ways that this can go. This may very, very well not be a race thing. But one of the interesting things that we consistently lately have been finding out about mass shooters, especially supposedly random ones, is that the name is released and then 4chan jumps right on it, which I would not be surprised to find out that 4chan has already found the name of the suspect by having a leaker coming out of the Grant County Sheriff's Office. And they're already talking about it. I don't use the chans because they scare the crap out of me. You know, they found Shia LaBeouf with cloud patterns. That is a scary level of accuracy. So I don't screw around with those people very much. They're good people, but they scare the crap out of me. But I wouldn't be surprised to find out that they've already released the name and already released all the details of the person who did the shooting. As far as the news outlets go, though, you know, they're not coming out here because as soon as we find out who did something like this, there's typically a big search for identity. We find out, especially lately, that it's some big-time leftoid. And then you start to question why this happens and why this keeps happening to leftoids. And of course, the other side of that is gun-free area, gun-free zone, because most festivals like this are dedicated as gun-free zones, soft target in the Seattle area, where getting a firearm is an act of God to begin with. So, our last update on this one, just a quick one here before we move on to what happened in Illinois. 2 killed in a mass shooting near Washington's Gorge Amphitheater during Beyond Wonderland Music Festival. So, just an update on wounded and killed. 2 were killed and several others were wounded during a mass shooting at the campgrounds near Gorge Amphitheater. 3 people were wounded, including the shooter who was taken into custody, authorities said. The report of the shooting came in at 8:25 p.m. During the law enforcement response, an officer-involved shooting incident occurred, according to the sheriff's office. The incident will be investigated by the North Central Washington Special Investigations Unit, the sheriff's office said. Again, they're being really tight-lipped about that, so I don't know if the officer shot at the suspect, if somebody came up and tried to run for help and it looked like they were bum rushing the cops and we did this. I don't know. They're being very, very tight-lipped about this, which makes me ask a bunch of questions. In case you were wondering who was there that night, Saturday's lineup featured performances from artists Dylan Francis, who I've never heard of, Flosterdamus, who I've never heard of. Sunday's lineup was set to feature Marshmello, who I have heard of, and Afrojack, whom I have not heard of. So that is all that we have for that. Shifting gears, coming back to the middle of the country, to Illinois. From CBS News, 1 dead, at least 22 wounded in mass shooting at Juneteenth celebration in Illinois. From Emily May Sachor. 1 person was fatally shot and 22 others were injured in gunfire that broke out during a Juneteenth celebration in Illinois early on Sunday morning, authorities said. The mass shooting happened around 12:30 a.m. in Willowbrook, a suburban village about 20 miles west of Chicago. It's a little bit more than that, but not much. When a large crowd of people had gathered for a party in a parking lot near Route 83, a major state highway, police patrolling the area were called way around that time to respond to another report alleging a fight had happened nearby. They returned to the gathering after hearing gunshots, the DuPage County Sheriff's Office said in a news release. An unknown number of suspects fired multiple rounds from multiple weapons into a crowd, according to the sheriff. Earlier Sunday, witnesses told CBS Chicago they had recalled hearing between 20 or 30 gunshots fired during the event, which was attended by more than 200 teenagers and young adults. Witnesses and law enforcement said the Juneteenth celebration was peaceful until the shooting started. Yeah, it was peaceful until the shooting started, which is why the police had to get called away for a rumble. I got kids to come back home too. I'm not used to this, one woman who witnessed the shooting said to CBS Chicago. I wasn't expecting it, but you just never know. Anything can happen anywhere. Another witness recalled hearing numerous gunshots. Anything could have happened. It was a lot of people out. We were all having a good time, but, he told the news station. In addition to the attendees who were shot, several other victims were injured while trying to flee the scene of the shooting, the sheriff's office said. Victims are being treated at different hospitals in the area. Their conditions are unknown at the time of the sheriff's news release. Let's have a look at where Willowbrook is. Let's get the map out here. So, oh, this is not Illinois. Let's try this again. That was in Minnesota. There, that looks a little bit more accurate. So this is Willowbrook. It's one of the suburbs, obviously. Out to the southwest side. not quite straight west, more to the southwest, heading out towards Bolingbrook and Lamont. So you're close to Hodgkins, which is a big concert venue. I've been to Hodgkins before. Right off of 294 and off of State Route 83. So you're still mostly Chicago. Like, being in Hodgkins, that was one too, because that was Hodgkins is a rough place. I have been to Hodgkins. It's not a place that I like being at night, even though I think the first 2 times it was quite late and quite dark out. But you get out to here, and I mean, anybody from outside of the area would consider this still be to Chicago. But I mean, people consider Aurora and Naperville to be Chicago too. So you're Chicago pretty much at this point. And just in general, kind of I would say probably nicer than, like, if you're over here somewhere, but still, you're getting into that, in that south side area. Let's grab another one from CNN. Reading on this one. Search for suspects still on in Juneteenth celebration. Mass shooting that left 1 dead and at least 22 hurt. I'm going to say right off the bat that if you haven't found them yet, good luck, because that's probably not going to happen. Not this late. Investigators are searching for suspects after a mass shooting on a Juneteenth celebration. Left 1 person dead and at least 22 others injured in suburban Chicago. Gunfire broke out after midnight in a parking lot in Willowbrook as an unknown number of suspects fired multiple rounds from multiple weapons into the crowd. The DuPage County Sheriff's Office said in a news release no suspects were in custody Sunday afternoon, with information very fluid as investigators interviewed victims and reviewed cell phone and surveillance video, the agency said. At least 12 ambulances rushed to the scene, hurrying people to hospitals with injuries ranging from graze wounds to serious gunshot wounds, Joe Ostrander, battalion chief of the Tri-State Fire Protection District, said early Sunday. Some were rather hurt trying to flee, authorities said. The Juneteenth event is the latest celebration in the U.S. to be interrupted by gunfire after a mass shooting just last month at the graduation ceremony in Virginia, which disappeared out of the news pretty quickly, an NBA championship celebration in Colorado, which we talked about yesterday, but also disappeared out of the news pretty quickly, and a birthday party in California, not to mention graduation parties, prom parties, and a birthday party in Alabama and Mississippi. Also, this weekend, a juvenile was killed and 9 others injured at a party in downtown St. Louis, when 2 people were killed and others were killed and others wounded in a mass shooting near an EDM festival in Gorge Amphitheater, which we talked about. More than 310 mass shootings with at least 4 people shot, excluding the shooter, have been recorded in the U.S. so far this year. Citation needed, please, the Gun Violence Archive reports. That's more mass shootings than days so far in 2023. No shit, Sherlock. I still don't believe that number, by the way. A shooting that injured 2 juveniles at a Juneteenth celebration in Asheville on Friday prompted organizers to cancel the festival's remaining events. We're saddened that a day of celebration and community unity was darkened by a cloud of violence, the event's organizers posted on their Facebook page. So, the fact, not found, Juneteenth celebration, likely to be a lot of gentlemen of darker skin complexion. This almost tells me that this was probably false flag of some sort. Another call to have more crackdowns on weapons. Which, I mean, it's the same thing that I see when I look at what happened out in Washington. These are in act of God to get a weapon states. They're always in blue states for whatever reason. In Washington, they went out of their way not to name the suspect. And I'm still waiting for that false flag to happen at a pride parade. did Bruce Willis kick off? Hold on. I just saw that headline over there on CNN. No, it's just because Demi Moore honored him for Father's Day. I thought he died. I did. Alright, a couple more here. Talking about Juneteenth. This one I don't think happened or had anything to do with the holiday. But I'm going to tell you right off the bat. This stinks. This stinks. This stinks of this kid was probably in the same Discord as the Uvalde asshole and the Buffalo asshole. From the Hill, Michigan teen arrested for plotting mass shooting at a synagogue. Because of course it was a synagogue. Where else would it be? From Jared Gons. A Michigan teenager has been arrested for an alleged plot to carry out a mass shooting at a synagogue, according to a criminal complaint filed against the teen. Of course it was a synagogue. The complaint charges 19-year-old Sean Piatilla with transmitting in interstate commerce a threat to injure someone. FBI Special Agent Ryan Roski said the complaint that Instagram messages from Piatilla demonstrated his neo-Nazi ideology, anti-Semitic beliefs, suicidal ideologies, praise of past mass shooters that have similar ideologies, and intent to copy their actions. The complaint states that Piatilla specifically mentioned that he admires Brenton Tarrant, who carried out the mass shooting at mosques in New Zealand in 2019, killing more than 50 people. The Instagram account that Piatilla used sent a message saying that they needed a camera for live streaming, as Tarrant did during his attack, and another saying they planned to mimic BT's attack per the complaint. This is like a word salad of buzzwords. Investigators also found a Pinterest account from Piatilla that included posts containing Nazi imagery and references to mass shooters. They were also able to connect the Instagram and Pinterest accounts to Piatilla, and also found TikTok and Discord accounts tied to him to confirm his identity. There it is. There it is. The FBI carried out a search warrant at Piatilla's home on Friday and arrested him. Piatilla confirmed during an interview with authorities that he was the Instagram user, but he did not intend to carry out mass shootings that he referenced per the complaint. Officials found a shotgun, rifle, pistol, ammunition, rifle magazines, multiple knives, and other instruments, firearm accessories, 2 tactical vests, a red and white Nazi flag, gas masks, and survivor manuals during the search of his home. Or you want to bet he had no job? Or a garbage job? Piatilla consented to investigators searching his iPhone that was also recovered during the search. And they found a note referring to the synagogue in East Lansing, Michigan, according to the complaint. The note lists a date of March 15th, 2024, the 5-year anniversary of Tarrant's attacks, and mentions pipe bombs, Molotovs, and multiple firearms. Piatilla told the investigators he planned to use the shotgun he had to kill himself, and wrote a suicide note on his phone, the complaint states. Yeah, this stinks. This smells like a setup. Kind of curious how we don't know any more about Piatilla. I don't, but again, what do you want to bet? There's no job. He has no money, but somehow he managed to get these items. I wonder if he was known to the FBI before this and still managed to purchase firearms. I don't know. Not a lot of details being released about this one, but we will see. I'm sure that once the oxygen gets to this one, especially given the gun control agenda that this country is trying to go through for next election. We will hear more about this at the time. Let's grab another one from CNN. Last one on Juneteenth. This is an op-ed by John Blake. The opinions expressed in this article are the opinions of John Blake and not necessarily the opinions of CNN, its parent companies, Turns of Pages Productions, Contemporary, or your host, J. Edgar. As the nation celebrates Juneteenth, it's time to get rid of these 3 myths about slavery. Tempe Cummins stoically stares at the camera with her arms folded in her lap, sitting stiffly in a chair, her dusty, barren backyard with her weather-beaten wooden shack behind her. Her dark, creased face reflects years of poverty and worry. The faded black and white image of Cummins from 1937 was snapped by a historian who stopped by her home in Jasper to ask her about her childhood during slavery. Cummins, who did not know her exact age, shared stories of uninterrupted woe while she recounted how she and her mother discovered that they had been freed. She said that her mother, a cook in former slave owner's family, liked to hide in the chimney corner to eavesdrop on dinner conversations. One day in 1865, she overheard the owner say that slavery had ended, but he wasn't going to let his slaves know until they harvested another crop or 2. When Mother heard that, she says she slipped out the chimney corner and cracked her heels together 4 times and shouts, "I's free! I's free!" Cummins told the historian, who recorded her story for a New Deal writers project that collected the narratives of formerly enslaved during the Great Depression. Government-mandated writing projects. Then she runs to the field against the master's will and told all the slaves, and they quit work. That story is one of the first recorded memoirs of an experience that would inspire the creation of Juneteenth, an annual holiday celebrating the end of slavery that the U.S. will commemorate this Monday. It marks the moment in June of 1865 when Union troops arrived in Texas to inform enslaved African Americans that they were free by executive decree. Many people, like Cummins in remote areas of Texas and elsewhere, did not know that they were free as their white owners hid the news from them. Juneteenth has since been known as America's second Independence Day, because of course we have to go back and compete with the first one. Now a federal holiday, it will be celebrated by parades, proclamations, and ceremonies throughout the U.S. Though it commemorates a moment when enslaved African Americans were freed, the U.S. is still held captive by several myths about slavery and people like Cummins. One of the biggest myths is that historians and storytellers have successfully challenged in recent years is that enslaved African Americans were docile, passive victims who had to wait until white abolitionists and the great emancipator Abraham Lincoln freed them. Black soldiers, for example, played a pivotal role in winning the Civil War. This new understanding of slavery has led to a rhetorical shift. It's no longer proper to refer to people like Cummins as simply slaves. There's been a shift in the historical community attempting to not define the period of people by what was done to them in the sense that their identity becomes a noun, a slave, but rather that they were in the process of being enslaved. Says Tobin Miller Shearer, a historian and director of African American Studies at the University of Montana. There were slavers who did that to them, he says, but there's more to their identity than what's been done to them. Yet other myths about slavery persist, in part because of the sheer enormity and brutality of slavery. The enslavement of an estimated 10 million Africans over a period of almost 4 centuries in the Atlantic slave trade was a tragedy of such scope that it's difficult to imagine, much less comprehend. Albert J. Roboteau wrote in The Slave Religion, the invisible institution in the antebellum South. Myth number 1, African American slaves were freed after the Civil War ended. There's a popular conception that the formerly enslaved were freed after the Civil War ended, but many had to continually fight for their freedom because so many whites still tried to keep them in captivity and were willing to use deceit and violence to do so. Well, yes, and there's also the fact that the news travels slowly, but lots were killed after freedom, bushwhacked, shot down while they're trying to get away, Merritt said. You could see a lot of them hanging from trees in the Sabine Bottom right after freedom. They would catch them swimming across the Sabine River and shoot them. Myth 2, enslaved Africans came to America without any culture or civilization. Mentioned slavery, it still evokes images of half-naked Africans stumbling into the American shores, struggling to learn to read and write in a strange and alien land. The focus of many stories about the formerly enslaved is not what was taken from them, but they gave plenty to America in ways that are still not appreciated. Captive Africans who came here didn't need to be civilized. They came to the U.S. as fully formed individuals, not black canvases, with their own cultures and specialized knowledge, said Leslie Wilson, a historian at Montclair State University in New Jersey. Yeah, we know, and there was a culture among them as well, the ones who were here. This is not a myth that's widely accepted. I don't know who thinks that these were just mindless automatons that were out there in the field, but they weren't. Myth 3, enslaved Africans were brainwashed by white man's pie-in-the-sky Christianity. In the Museum of the Bible in D.C., there's a special exhibit of an artifact that is so rare that there are only a handful now in existence. It's what historians call a slave Bible. It's a copy of a Bible that was used by British missionaries to convert enslaved African Americans. Published in 1807, the Bible deletes any passages that may inspire liberation. About 90% of the Old Testament is missing, along with half of the New Testament. They literally blacked out portions of the Bible that had nothing to do with freedom, anything to do with equality, anything to do with God delivering folks, said Leon Harris, a theology professor at Biola University in California. And yet still people trust the government without any question. So, there's your Juneteenth review. Let's talk Dwayne Owen. I think that'd be an interesting one because the ACLU got involved in this one in a way that actually got leftoids even to turn on them. From CBS News, Florida executes Dwayne Owen for the 1984 killings of teenage babysitter and a mother of two. By the way, this dude sat on death row for literally my entire life. I was born in '84. No author given. A Florida man was executed on Thursday, which is hilarious that CBS comes out and says Florida man, because the ACLU is very adamant that this is a transgender, strong, empowered transgender individual. A Florida man was executed Thursday for killing a 14-year-old babysitter and a 38-year-old mother of two in separate attacks months apart in '84, while children were sleeping in the homes that he targeted. Dwayne Owen was pronounced dead at 6:14 p.m. after a lethal injection at a Florida state prison, according to Ron DeSantis' office. One of Florida's longest-held death row inmates, Owen was 23 at the time of the attacks and 62 when he was executed. Owen declined to make a final statement. The procedure began at 6:01 p.m., with Owen's arm twitching and his breathing becoming heavier as the sedative took effect. The warden made sure Owen was unconscious before the lethal drugs were administered. Owen was sentenced to death in the March 24, 1984 rape and fatal stabbing of Karen Slattery, 14. And for the rape and deadly hammer attack 2 months later at Georgiana Warden, 38, both killings occurred at Palm Beach County. Authorities said Owen attacked two other women in Palm Beach County who survived. All four attacks occurred just before and after Owen's 23rd birthday. One of the more than 290 people on Florida's death row, Owen was one of the longest held there. Besides his death sentences, he also received 6 lives. Several family members of the victims witnessed the execution. No one in the witness room spoke. But after the execution, Slattery's younger sister, Debbie Johnson, who sat in the front row, called Owen a coward. He didn't open his eyes, Johnson said. I know because I looked at them. Johnson, who works as a deputy in the Florida Keys, was 10 years old when her sister died. With this rain today, I was really hoping I was going to see a rainbow, Johnson said, because that's what my mom always said. Whenever you see a rainbow, that's Karen smiling down on us. That's no rainbow, but the rain will stop and she'll come through her own way. So this in and of itself was an absolutely devastating case. But the reason that this became newsworthy over the weekend came because of this, the ACLU tweeting out, "The state of Florida," and this is also why I found it interesting that CBS used he, him pronouns. "The state of Florida never provided medically necessary gender-affirming care to Dwayne Owen, causing her enormous suffering and violating her right to be free from cruel and unusual punishment for the more than 30 years that she was in state custody." To which, readers add to the context, Dwayne stabbed 14-year-old Karen Slattery 18 times, killing her, then raped her corpse. He committed murder again years later. In legal papers she drafted, Owen wrote that she should be accorded the essence of human dignity and be allowed to become who she was meant to be before her death. No one should be killed by the state. The time to end the racist, unfair, and cruel death penalty is now. More context, in '84, Owen murdered and raped both a 14-year-old girl and a 38-year-old mother. Owen's lawyers argued insanity. Psychiatrists for the state testified Owen had fake schizophrenia and had no signs of gender dysphoria. His records indicate he exhibited sexual sadism. So, and the ACLU got absolutely ratioed by this one. Somehow, 2,277 people liked this. I don't know how or why. 24,400 comments, putting the ACLU in their place. And if that wasn't enough, on the second part of their thread, 758 people with questionable judgment liked this, to 4,248 comments. So they got run through the ringer pretty hard on this one. Yeah, Jennifer pointing out, somehow you managed to make nearly everyone here a fan of the death penalty. Good job, ACLU. Keep tweeting. And dear ACLU, just in case you're wondering, my tweet has more likes than yours, and you have almost 13.7 million views. Yeah, that's the interesting part of it. I'm not a fan of the death penalty, and between this one and the story that KTZed covered last night, those are two instances that I would make an exception for. And I always say, my big problem with the death penalty is the fact that you can't go back if new evidence comes back up and unkill somebody. It just don't work. The Daily Wire with a follow-up on this one. ACLU slammed for tweet defending pedophile and murderer who was executed in Florida. From Daily Wire News. Mogwai says the ACLU does some great things. Yeah, they bring attention to why we should not listen to what the ACLU says. That's for sure. The far-left American Civil Liberties Union faced intense backlash on Friday after it defended convicted pedophile and murderer Dwayne Owen, who was executed by the state of Florida. The state of Florida never provided medically necessary, gender-affirming care to Dwayne Owen, causing her enormous suffering, the ACLU claimed, and violating her right to be free from cruel and unusual punishment for more than 30 years she was in state custody. Was it cruel and unusual when he, she, whatever the hell you want to try to make this out to be, fucked a child corpse after viciously slaughtering the child? Owen's lawyers tried to get him taken off the death row by claiming that he was insane, which the state Supreme Court rejected. They also claimed that he was delusional schizophrenic and was transgender. But funny, they don't think that's a mental illness. So why would they make the claim to say that he was insane over that? The tweet elicited strong reactions from people online who called the insanity of the matter. If he had been executed in a timely manner, it wouldn't have been a problem, actor James Woods said. Then the loved ones of his murdered victims wouldn't have been the ones who actually suffered for 30 years. The conservative millennial tweeted, "The only injustice in Owen's case is that it took the state 40 years to execute him." Gays Against Groomers will get the last word on this and says the ACLU is very upset that a man who raped and murdered a 14-year-old girl... No, and that's the worst part was. He didn't actually rape and murder a 14-year-old girl. He murdered and then raped a 14-year-old girl, making it 30 times worse. Was never given gender-affirming care in prison before he was executed. This is not a parody. Holy fuck, these people are monsters. So, good. They got roundly rejected for this, and they needed it. Let's talk about the Titanic. Something non-political for once. God, I've been praying for this for... And I know that election season starts as soon as the last election is over at this point. But I've been praying for this for a while. The only time we ever get anything non-political anymore on this channel is things I like and things that I hate. And even that 3/4 of the time is political. We get a break, we get a reprieve. We get a reprieve that blows, but... From CNN. A search and rescue operation is underway for a submersible touring the wreckage of the Titanic. From Eric Levinson and Raja Razak. The Coast Guard launched a search and rescue operation for a submersible with 5 people on board that went missing during an expedition of the wreckage of the Titanic in the North Atlantic Ocean. The military branch received a phone call Sunday informing them that the Canadian research ship Polar Prince had lost contact with the underwater vessel and were overdue on checking with their communications, according to the Coast Guard spokesperson Lieutenant Samantha Corcoran. Right now, we're just trying to use all the efforts and work with international partners to get any resources out there to safely locate all 5 individuals, she said. The missing submersible lost contact an hour and 45 minutes into its descent, the Coast Guard said. And that has just become a region of the ocean that I never want to be in. A British businessman based in the UAE, Hamish Harding, is one of the people on the submersible, according to the social media post by the company he owns, Action Aviation. The sub had a successful launch and Hamish is currently diving, the company said in an Instagram post on Sunday. The 5 people on board comprised 1 pilot and 4 mission specialists, the Coast Guard said. In a news conference, Rear Admiral John Mauger, commander of the Coast Guard's 1st District, didn't identify the 5 and said authorities were still in the process of contacting family members. He referred to reporters to the group conducting the expedition, Ocean Gate Expeditions, for information about what this term mission specialist entails. I would think that it's a person who's a specialist on the mission that they're going on. I don't know. Is there anything other that you would call a mission specialist? He referred reporters to a group. Oh, no, I read that one already. The vessel is designed with 96 hours of rescue or emergency capability, Mauger said. U.S. and Canadian assets are searching the surface using sonar to scan the water underneath for signs of the submersible. The water is 13,000 feet deep in the area, which is 900 miles east of Cape Cod, Mauger said. Ocean Gate is assisting in the search and said it's exploring and mobilizing all options to bring the crew back safely. Our entire focus is on the crew members and the submersible and their families. We are deeply thankful for the extensive assistance we have received from several government agencies and deep-sea companies in our effort to reestablish contact with the submersible, the group said. We're working towards the safe return of the crew members. Let me just do something here. Look at the maps out here. No, well, I might have to go with a Google image for that. Because it doesn't show up on Google Maps. So, like I said, about 1,000 miles east of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. So, realistically, they didn't get far. And I'm a touch surprised that there wasn't a better rescue effort coming out of Newfoundland. But it was also, I think, the 30s. I don't know that much about the Titanic, and I've never seen the movie either, by the way. I will come back out and say that this was, like, I know about the Titanic. I know that it went down. I know it was a part of the White Star Line, and the Lusitania was its sister ship, and I know that there are conspiracy theories about it, but that wasn't one that held my interest when I was a kid. Now that we have something that's happened in the same general vicinity, I am admittedly a little bit more interested about it. And the conspiracy theories that surround it. I'm not going to lie, this has piqued my interest and made me want to learn a lot about it. So I might do some reading on this after the stream. I'm going to skip the other ones on this one just because I don't think they're going to offer us much more talk about what's actually happening there, just kind of review of what happened with this. But they do a small profile on Hamish Harding himself, and then a little bit more about what we know about it so far. So let's look at this one from Fox Business here. Who is Hamish Harding, the British businessman and explorer aboard the missing Titanic sightseeing sub? No other given. Bri Bannock. Mogwai bringing back the meme from the last couple days. Hamish Harding, a British millionaire who's known for his exploratory escapades across the globe, is reportedly among 5 people who went missing aboard a tourist submersible visiting the Titanic shipwreck. Harding, chairman of the Dubai-based Action Aviations, boarded the Ocean Gate Expedition submersible Sunday morning as part of the $250,000 tourist venture to see the historic wreck of the ill-fated White Star ocean liner off the Canadian coast. We started steaming from St. John's, Newfoundland yesterday, and we're planning to start dive operations around 0400 tomorrow. Until then, we have a lot of preparations and briefings to do, Harding wrote on an Instagram post before his departure. The vessel lost contact with Ocean Gate shortly afterwards. Ocean Gate advisor David Concannon noted the sub had likely used about a third of its 96-hour oxygen supply by Monday afternoon, and told the Associated Press that efforts to get a remotely operated vehicle to the site, about 12,500 feet beneath the Atlantic surface, would commence as soon as possible. The sub was reported overdue at about 9:13 p.m. Sunday, about 435 miles from the St. John's, according to a Joint Rescue Coordination Center in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Rescue efforts are being spearheaded by the Coast Guard in Boston with the assistance of the Canadian Coast Guard and military aircraft. Harding acknowledged the expedition's treacherous nature, noting abysmal conditions in eastern Canada have significantly complicated exploration of the Titanic wreck. Due to the worst winter in Newfoundland in over 40 years, the mission is likely to be the first and only manned mission to the Titanic in 2023, he wrote. Well, that may be a bit of a harbinger. Harding is renowned for his lofty travel ambitions, with a resume including record-setting circumnavigation of the Earth, an Antarctic expedition with Apollo 11 astronaut Buzz Aldrin, and a seat aboard the 5th human flight of Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket last year. So this is a guy who gets around a little bit. And the final one, what we know so far about the tourist submarine that disappeared. From Emily May Sadshore over at CBS. A massive search unfurled on Monday as authorities probed the North Atlantic for a tourist submarine that went missing over the weekend on an expedition to explore the famous Titanic shipwreck. What happened? The 5-person crew on a submersible named Titan, owned by OceanGate Expedition, submerged on a dive to the Titanic wreckage site on Sunday morning. And the crew of the Polar Prince research ship lost contact with the sub around an hour and 45 minutes later, the U.S. Coast Guard said on Monday afternoon. The sub was lost in an area about 900 miles east of Cape Cod in the North Atlantic in water with a depth of about 13,000 feet. The Coast Guard officials said the people aboard included an operator and 4 mission specialists, a term the company uses for its passengers. Hamish Harding, a British billionaire and adventure traveler, is reportedly among the group, but the Coast Guard has not released the identities of the other 4. News of the vanished submersible and subsequent search broke Monday morning. At the time, Lieutenant Jordan Hart of the Coast Guard in Boston told CBS that personnel were leading the rescue mission and focusing on waters off of Newfoundland and eastern Canada. Hart said Coast Guard personnel were currently undergoing a search and rescue operation in that area in an effort to locate and recover the submarine. The Boston Regional Coordination Center was managing the rescue operation, a spokesperson for the Canadian Coast Guard confirmed. The location of the Titanic shipwreck falls within the Boston Coordination Center's territory, according to a map of jurisdictions along the east coast of North America. The Coast Guard said it had C-130 aircraft searching for the sub, and that the Rescue Coordination Center Halifax was assisting with P-8 Poseidon aircraft, which has an underwater detection capability. We're doing everything we can to make sure we can locate and rescue those on board, Rear Admiral John Mauger with the U.S. Coast Guard said during a Monday afternoon briefing. And that was the path that they were supposed to be taking. Now, I don't remember, because it's been a while since, and again, I told you, I admitted the fact that the Titanic was not necessarily on my radar at the time. Did they start in England? And we're headed for New York, or was it the other way around? So, that is what we know about that. And we'll keep watching this to see if there are any updates to it. Until Wednesday, when they run out of air. Let's talk Rogan. Yeah, Joe Rogan became newsworthy this week. I like Joe. I don't necessarily religiously listen to him, but when he's got a good guest on, I'll sit and listen to that whole thing, especially if I've got a long drive ahead of me. From the Daily Wire, Joe Rogan challenges vaccine champion to debate Robert Kennedy Jr. From Daniel Chayton. UFC commentator and comedian Joe Rogan invited a health expert to debate Robert Kennedy Jr., a Democratic Party candidate for president, about vaccines on his popular podcast in exchange for a $100,000 donation to charity. Dr. Peter Hotez, dean at the National School of Tropical Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, lashed out in response to Rogan speaking to Kennedy about vaccine efficacy and safety during a recent interview on Rogan on Spotify. Note to self, get the RFK Jr. interview on Rogan. Hotez, who's also director of the Texas Children's Hospital Center for Vaccine Development, was recognized as a vaccine champion by the American Medical Association last year for his work advocating for vaccines, particularly during the pinkopox pandemic. On Saturday, Hotez tweeted a link to a Vice article, which we have in the stack, by the way. Spotify has stopped even sort of trying to stem Joe Rogan's vaccine misinformation, tagging the author and saying the report was really true and just awful. He added, and from all the online attacks I'm receiving after this absurd podcast, it's clear many actually believe this nonsense. Well, you see, you entered the arena and didn't realize it was going to come back and turn on you. Rogan replied from his verified Twitter account, Hey, Peter, if you claim what RFK Jr. is saying is misinformation, I'm offering $100,000 to the charity of your choice if you're willing to debate him on my show with no time limit, Rogan said. Peter, let's finally have the respectful, congenial, informative debate that the American people deserve, Kennedy said in reply. In a quote tweet response to Rogan, Hotez said, Joe, you have my cell, my email. I'm always willing to speak to you. Rogan shot back, saying Hotez's tweet was a non-answer to his challenge. I challenge you publicly because you publicly quote tweeted and agree with that dogshit Vice article, Rogan added. If you really are serious about what you stand for, you now have a massive opportunity for a debate that will reach the largest audience a discussion like this will ever have. If you think someone else is better qualified, suggest that person. The back and forth continued with Hotez quote tweeting along the response to Rogan. Joe, if you're serious about addressing vaccines and the fact that 200,000 unvaccinated Americans needlessly perished during our awful Delta BA1 COVID waves, including 40,000 in our state of Texas because they fell victims to vaccine disinformation, I want to have that discussion, Hotez said. And I'm open to a number of different options, but to be pressured to give you an answer on Twitter now with a take it or leave it demand, that's not how I work. Honestly, I didn't even think that would be in your best interest, Hotez continued. I'm happy to come on and have a meaningful discussion. I respect you and your show, and I don't want an adversarial relationship. I think we can make some progress. Rogan kept up the pressure. Again, I'm asking you very clearly, are you willing to debate Kennedy on my podcast? To those misunderstanding what he's saying, he's not agreeing to debate Kennedy, Rogan said in another tweet. He's just offering to come on my show by himself. Hotez started engaging with Elon Musk, who jumped into the fray by claiming the doctor is afraid of a public debate because he knows he's wrong. Seriously, Elon? This is monstrous. 200,000 Americans needlessly perished because they were victims of anti-vaccine disinformation during our BA1 waves in 2021 and 2022. Please don't do this, he said in response to Musk. As the conversation continued, Hotez summarized his position in a separate pair of tweets. Let's remember what this is about. Not a small number of Americans lost their lives from anti-vaccine disinformation. During the pandemic, 200,000 Americans perished, 40,000 from the state of Texas. I have nothing personal versus Joe, Elon, RFK Jr. Just hoping to halt more destruction, he said. Not easy to respond when these three gang up and tag team. Wish I could more eloquent and clever when the moment demands, but there you are. So, and another user actually tried to sum this up. And we'll get to where I think the position is, but I want to get through this tweet and then the Vice article. Virtually unknown Mike Drucker. Well, I guess he's got a fair amount of following here, but virtually unknown Mike Drucker says, Doctor, I'm sorry, you have cancer. Dork, no I don't, debate me. Doctor, I understand if you want a second opinion. In fact, I encourage it. Dork, sounds like you won't debate the issue because you know you're wrong. Doctor, I'd love to be wrong. Well, then debate me. And with a lot of really good responses off of this, including what actually happened with this. Tom says, Dork, here's 100% proof of why you're this account is suspended. Josh Steinley with, I think, one of the best ones off of this. Dork, I got a second opinion. It says you're wrong. Can we talk about it? Doctor, no. Dork, why not? Doctor, stop attacking me. Dork, what are you talking about? Doctor, that's it, I'm blocking you. And another good one off of this. Doctor, you have cancer. Me, what kind? How advanced? Can I see the charts? Doctor, you know I'm a doctor, right? You know I'm an MD. Me, I want to make an informed decision. Doctor, you can't, you're not a doctor. Me, I want a second opinion. Doctor, any doctor who agrees or disagrees is a quack. which essentially is what it is. It's a little bit more complicated than the last tweet that we talked, or that I quoted here from that. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but not very much. And one of the things that I've always said, I mean, if your position is as solid as you say it is, you will decimate the debate. And the worst part of the COVID vaccine, the debate around the COVID vaccine, was the fact that, I mean, we knew that most vaccines were just fine. In fact, had a long, long track record of doing what it was that they said that they were going to. Polio, MMR, things like that. We knew full well that these were safe and effective vaccines. And the thing with the COVID vaccine is, really honestly, I can come out and say that it made more anti-vaxxers than anything that RFK Jr. ever said. I started getting skeptical, and I said it to Elaine too, when we were still doing the Red Net show. The first thing I said when I heard about the sweepstakes, the contest, try and convince people in West Virginia to go run out and get the vaccine because you could be entered for a chance to win a brand new truck if you go out and get it. You're a college student, you could be entered for a full scholarship at the college of your choice if you go out and get this thing. Good ideas do not need to be incentivized. They're already good ideas. And if you have to try to bribe people and then mandate people to do something, I have questions about how effective it is and how safe it is that I would have never had prior to this. I would have never once had a question about taking a vaccine prior to this. In fact, I was on record during Operation Warp Speed saying, I'm going to go ahead, once this thing comes out, I'm going to give it about 6 months. I want to see if there are any major side effects, because I do think this thing was rushed. But I want to see if there are any major side effects or if it starts to show a massive decline in infection rates. So give it 6 months, maybe 7 months, and then if it acts the way that it was advertised, then I'm actually probably going to go and get this thing. And then 6 months later, the transmission rates were effectively the same. Not only that, but people were being bribed. 6 months, people were being bribed and begged to take this thing. And I started to realize, yeah, no thanks. This is not for me. Here's the Vice article. And when I finish this, before we go on to the Blaze article talking about the MSDNC host, I will point out the direction that this all went. All right, from Vice. And this is the article that Dr. Hotez quoted when he was calling Joe Rogan a quack. Spotify stopped even sort of trying to stem Joe Rogan's vaccine misinformation. From Anna Merlan. A broad swath of the anti-vaccine universe celebrated Thursday when Joe Rogan, the biggest podcaster in the country, hosted a 3-hour conversation with RFK Jr., the anti-vax luminary turned presidential candidate. The conversation was an orgy of unchecked vaccine misinformation, some conspiracy mongering about 5G technology and Wi-Fi, and of course, Rogan once again praising the ivermectin, an effective faux COVID treatment. They said ineffective. As RFK began his campaign by downplaying the anti-vaccine activism, the conversation represented a bit of a return to form. But the episode also conclusively demonstrates that Spotify, the platform that reportedly paid more than $200 million to host Rogan's show, has completely given up on addressing the relentless torrent of medical misinformation, except in the most pallid and surface-level ways. The show began with Rogan monologuing effusively about how he changed his mind on Kennedy, saying he'd gone from thinking the latter was a fringy-thinking conspiracy-type person to agreeing with Kennedy's stance on vaccines during the pandemic. It was I was like, is this possible? That this is the guy that's telling the truth? Rogan asked rhetorically. What followed was a detailed survey of Kennedy's most dangerously incorrect views, far too extensive list to outline in full, all of which Rogan accepted uncritically, his mouth quite often literally agape in awe. No, that was just because he was stoned. His mouth wasn't agape in awe, it was the cough syrup that was poured in his coffee. You guys tried DMT? There was also a casual aside near the end in which Kennedy, who believes his uncle JFK and his father were both assassinated by the CIA, suggested that he himself may be targeted by the organization. He told Rogan he takes precautions against the CIA, although it's unclear what those might be. Well, I'm sure he doesn't ride in a Lincoln convertible. Although I hear that Hillary Clinton is actually petitioning for the Ford Motor Company to make a custom Lincoln convertible, because Lincoln doesn't make any convertibles anymore. But I heard that Hillary is actually petitioning the Ford Motor Company to make a Lincoln convertible just for RFK Jr. They included innumerable talking points that have already been debunked. I'm going to debunk. At one point, for instance, Kennedy falsely suggested that vaccines cause autism, which has been repeatedly and roundly disproven, with Rogan interjecting supportively. Kennedy also trotted out in one of his favorite talking points that vaccines contain a dangerous form of mercury, something he says a lot. As ever, he conflated ethyl mercury, which is not considered hazardous to human health, with methyl mercury, which is considered dangerous to even small doses. Kennedy in this instance did acknowledge that there are two different kinds of mercury, but insisted there's no real difference between them, that ethyl mercury lodged in the brains of monkeys in lab tests, and that anyone who might say there's a difference between the two kinds of mercury is a pharma shill. In reality, methyl mercury is much more commonly encountered in the environment, for instance, when eating fish or shellfish, whereas ethyl mercury primarily appears in thimerosal, a preservative that's been used in some childhood vaccines. But thimerosal was removed from most childhood vaccines by 01 and has, in any case, never been found to cause autism and any other negative health effect. So this is the article, and it does go on and on and on and on and on. But I do, and again, I want to point out that this is Hotez. He started this. And even the left-leaning outlets are pointing that out. Hotez started this. He quoted this article and called Rogan a quack, essentially. And RFK Jr. a quack. And then was surprised when they replied and said, hey, what the hell? And then offered for him to come back and defend his position. Like, Rogan is the furthest person from a one-sided argument. It's just the fact that people who stand against him won't go on his show. But one of the things that I've noted, and in the ins and outs in the few Rogan episodes that I have heard compared to his full library, because he's got like 1,600 episodes, probably 1,700 at this point. And I've probably only ever listened to 20 of them. But I started on the JRE experience late too. Like, I only listened to my first Rogan episode, I think, 2 years ago. In fact, I know it was because it was Tim Pool when he was on right before Ron White. Which the Ron White one was a good one. It's a couple years old at this point, but I still recommend it highly. And that's how it started. Here's how it's going. Liberal MSDNC host tells Peter Hotez not to debate RFK Jr. Likens Kennedy to Holocaust denier. From Joe McKinnon. And this is, of course, Mehdi Hassan. Vaccine promoter Peter Hotez remains unwilling to agree to a debate with RFK Jr. over whether the Democratic presidential candidate's criticisms of the Pinkowpox jab amounted to misinformation. This is even though Rogan and a cadre of interested parties together have volunteered to donate over $2.6 million to the charity of his choosing. Hotez appears more than happy to talk, just not to those with dissenting viewpoints for charity's sake. Well, and that's a part of the problem with the liberal mindset, is that it doesn't stand up to pushback very well. And you can see it too, by the way, and not just the way that Hotez debates online, but the way that many of the leftoids come out there. With the inception of the more conservative side of Twitter rushing to go out and get their verified check marks, the newest way to go back and dismiss somebody and keep from talking to them is the memes that go around that say, $8 chuckle fuck, with the blue check off of there, insisting that the people who disagree, rather than having an honest discussion, see the verified check mark and say, I'm just not even going to listen to you. La 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 la. But that's the liberal mindset anyway, and I mean it's gone back much further than that. And so a lot of the MAGA did it too, but it's again goes back to the point that I pointed out, that it's a lot of MAGA is it's former Democrats. A lot of MAGA would go out, and some of my libertarian friends would do it too, and pronouns in bio, opinion disregarded. Like, dude, I read the tweet storm that you had with this person. You were in a position that you were winning, and this person is just holding on for dear life. And all you're doing right now is saying, opinion disregarded. And it was the same thing going the other way from the left. You have America First in your bio, you have MAGA in your bio. Opinion disregarded. The left wing of politics understands that their argument cannot stand up to scrutiny. So it's easier to go back out and find an external characteristic and dismiss the person's points that way. I'm pushing 40 years old, and my hair, well, it's coming back now, but when I was in the midst of living in water that was pretty much concrete, and the stress that was going on through my life, it was starting to go backwards. And that was, again, exactly the point where people, if I did start to make headway in the argument, oh, look at you, you can't comment on this with a hairline like that. It's a constant thing. He appeared on Sundays on the MSDNC Mehdi Hassan show, in part to peddle his new book, but also to take more digs at Kennedy, suggesting that joining him on Rogan's podcast for a debate will turn into the Jerry Springer show. Why? Hassan in turn condemned the prospect of a debate and likened Kennedy to a Holocaust denier. The Blaze previously reported that Hotez, a self-described internationally recognized physician turned scientist in neglected tropical diseases and vaccine development, drew Rogan's ire on Saturday by circulating a hit piece from bankrupted leftist blog that bemoaned Spotify's reluctance to censor the podcast over so-called misinformation. The article by Anna Merlan focused on Rogan's recent interview with Kennedy, in which the two discussed the possible fallout from various pharmaceutical initiatives, including the Pinkowpox vaccine. Hotez tweeted, Spotify has stopped even sort of trying to stem Rogan's vaccine misinformation. It's really true, Anna Merlan, just awful. Sup? And from all the online attacks I'm receiving after this absurd podcast, it's clear many actually believe this nonsense. So, and then we go on to the $100,000 to the charity of your choice. Others have since volunteered funds to the charity debate pot, reportedly now over $2.62 million. Including Cosmos founder Jay Kwan, who offered $777,000. Kickboxer Andrew Tate, $500,000. Billionaire investor Bill Ackman, $150,000. Steve Kirsch, $100,000. And Tim Pool, $100,000. Which is weird because if Tim Pool were to kick in $100,000, he'd be kicking in Vice money. RFK Jr. accepted the challenge. Peter, let's finally have the respectful, congenial, informative debate the American people deserve. And the very last one that I'm going to do on this is kind of the opposite of this. Because I've mostly been in support of RFK Jr.'s position and Rogan's position on this, and mostly against Hotez's position. But I'm going to come back out and say, with what's happening with Washington Post, dude, don't do this. Vaccine scientist says anti-vaxxers stalked him after Rogan's challenge. From Timothy Bella, which I'm actually not surprised by. But I'm going to also tell you, this is bad. Don't do that. That's bad. A vaccine scientist said anti-vaxxers stalked him at his home after Rogan and others, including Twitter CEO Elon Musk, challenged the scientist to a debate. RFK Jr., an anti-vaccine proponent and Democrat presidential candidate, over vaccine misinformation. Peter Hotez, a Houston-based scientist and pediatrician in global health, vaccinology, and neglected tropical diseases, spent much of the pandemic debunking misinformation spread online about the pinko pox and the vaccines for the illnesses. He was also part of a Nobel Prize-nominated team of scientists who created an affordable, easy-to-make pinko pox vaccine. Which means he's got skin in the game here. Hotez criticized Rogan over the weekend as awful for hosting Kennedy, one of the country's leading anti-vaccine advocates, who has peddled false claims linking vaccines to autism. On Rogan's wildly popular podcast last week, yeah, we know that. But Hotez said he was not prepared for what unfolded Sunday when anti-vaxxers showed up at his home to harass, taunt, and confront him about Rogan's challenge to debate Kennedy. He tweeted that he was stalked in front of my home by a couple anti-vaxxers taunting me to debate RFK Jr. Now, I've seen the video, by the way, and I wouldn't say that necessarily this is a taunt or any sort of violent threat to him, but I still think that it's in very bad taste to go back out and do that. Leave it to Twitter. Like, he's not blocking people as far as I know on Twitter. So if you want to ask him why he won't go back, and I have done that. I have gone on to his Twitter and replied because he's being elevated absolutely every fucking where. I have replied to him and said, hey, if you feel this strongly about it, go talk to RFK Jr. about it. I would love to listen to it. But leave it there. Don't go to the man's home. That's bad. Don't do that. Some things that have been pointed out effectively. My friend Brian Nichols of The Brian Nichols Show, which you should all be listening to as well, by the way, but it's not part of the network that I'm trying to build here right now, so he doesn't get the free promo every beginning of the show, but you should be listening to Brian Nichols. Brian Nichols rocks. But yeah, go listen to Brian Nichols, absolutely. But he hit it right on the head too when he said, it's too bad you guys set the standard for this by stalking in front of Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh's house during the Roe debate. And they did do that. I still say that it's wrong, by the way. I won't whataboutism it. I won't come back out and say that what the leftoids did was right or what the anti-vaxxers did was right. But the standard has been set. And it is an acceptable form of political warfare, unfortunately. I would like to see us get pulled back away from that being an acceptable point of warfare, but one thing I will point out is that our friends to the right will probably pull back if we ask them to, and our friends to the left will triple down on it. All right. Speaking of things that the left is tripling down on, another one from The Wire. Multiple Republican officials in Kansas received cryptic letters containing white powder. Now, and it's interesting, and I put this up here juxtaposed with a local from WIBW and one from CNN, and just, I don't know, we'll look a little ways into the articles for both of those, but it's interesting that that one R word is omitted from the headlines of both of these. We'll see how far it is down before they find out that it was leftoids sending it to Republicans. But let's read from the Daily Wire first, from Ben Whitehead. Republican legislators and officials in Kansas have reported receiving cryptic letters containing white powder since Friday, with some officials speculating they're politically motivated. You think? The Kansas Bureau of Investigation, which is working alongside the FBI on the investigation, confirmed over the weekend that roughly 100 letters have been sent. So far, it appears the letters have been sent exclusively to Republicans. And one Republican lawmaker suspects it could be connected to Republicans overriding the Democratic governor's vetoes. This is not okay, State Rep. Tori Marie Blue, who received a letter, said on a Facebook post. I don't know all the details, but as of now, only Republican legislators have received this package. The number of letters being reported has steadily increased since Saturday, when officials said roughly 80 letters have reported across the state. On Sunday, that number was 90, and officials updated the number to roughly 100 as of Monday, according to the KBI. ABC News reported that the substances that have been tested so far are neither explosive nor a biohazard. No. And they've been doing this, and again, this goes back onto the logic that I made about bomb threats in a target. Whereas there's 99.99% of the time no bomb when they call it in. But the time that you don't go and check is going to be that 0.01% of the time when there actually is one, and a bunch of people get hurt on your watch. 99.99% of the time when somebody is sending white powder, number one, it's a threat. It's a bio threat. They're threatening you, making you think that you're opening up anthrax. But 99.99% of the time, it's powdered sugar. And again, that 0.01% of the time that you don't check and you just go willy-nilly and say, they never pull through it. That's going to be the time it'll be anthrax. Law enforcement is working to safely collect the letters and investigate the incidences. The KBI said in a statement, currently no injuries have been reported, but we ask everyone to remain vigilant in handling mail. State Rep. Stephen Owens, a Republican who believes the letters could be a response to one of the 9 vetoes the legislature has overridden this year, including one that bans transgender identifying athletes from competing in sports teams opposite their biological sex. Republicans control both the House and the Senate in the state, but Democrat Laura Kelly has been governor since 2019. Why did I think this was Kentucky? I don't know, when I saw Laura Kelly, I'm like, wait a second, isn't Andy Beshear the governor? No, this isn't Kentucky. This is Kansas. Carry on, my wayward son. Owens told CNN the letter sender was very deliberate in trying to get the officials to open the letters, as the one he received had the return address of a church located in his district. Violence and acts of violence and threats do absolutely nothing to change one's perspective, Owens said. As a matter of fact, that strengthens the resolve of myself and my colleagues and of our party and continue the work that we're doing. The letter Owens received begins by saying salutations, which is pretty much usually a dead giveaway right there. To honor your recent accomplishments, I send you a gift from the exclusive Astruk Baruch collection. It's It's important not to choke on your ambition, according to the photo the letter Owen shared with the outlet. It was signed, "Your Secret Despirer." The Republican AG and House Speaker were among those who received the letters, while no Democrats have been reported to receive the letters. Shocker. As of Sunday, according to KMBC, Owens told CNN he believes the other officials who received them are also Republicans. It's unclear if each one said the same thing as the one Owens received. So that's the scoop on this. Let's look at CNN and see how long it takes to say that it's all Republicans getting this. About 100 letters containing a white powder were sent to the public officials across Kansas, officials say. From Rosa Flores, Sarah Weisfeld of CNN. Approximately 100 letters containing white powder have been received by state legislators and public officials across Kansas, officials said, setting off an investigation that includes state and federal agencies. Preliminary tests on a small sample of letters show the substance is presumptively negative for common bioagents of concern, the KBI said on Sunday. Further and more complete testing will be conducted on this sample, as well as in additional letters that have been collected in an effort to determine the components of the substance, the Bureau said. It's going to be mostly sucralose, just so you know. Table sugar. No injuries have been reported, and the KBI and a spokesperson for the State House Speaker Daniel Hawkins said. Hawkins, a Republican, received one of the letters. His spokesperson, Carrie Ruffalt, said, "Oh, hey, now we've got, 4 paragraphs in. Our first mention that it's a Republican." Republican State Rep Stephen Owens says he also received one of the letters and believes the others who sent or received them are fellow Republicans. So it took them 5 paragraphs. So they put a bunch of stuff in a different language, or several different languages, most of which I can't read. But the font, that surprises me even more, because like this is the kind of thing that you do when you clip magazine clippings. Not just change the font every letter. And let's look at the local coverage. Kansans warned to remain wary of mail following white powder reports. Oh, look, it's not even lawmakers. Everybody needs to be aware. From 13 WIBW. Legislative leaders have warned Kansans to remain wary of their mail while picking it up out of their mailboxes as the investigation continues into more than 100 reports of white powder-laced letters. On Monday, June 19th, Kansas Republican leaders say that while there has been a small amount of good news to come out of the investigation into more than 100 letters that contain white powder mailed to elected officials in the Sunflower State, the week has certainly been stressful. At this point, it appears over 100 elected state and legislative officials have received threatening letters with suspicious powdery substance, said the legislators. Thankfully, KTZed is saying the substance is presumptively negative for any biologicals. No, and again, it's powdered sugar is what they're putting in there. They're just making it seem like a threat to try to shake and rattle these people. Trust me, if Anthrax got in that letter, the KBI and the FBI would know about it long before it ever got to the recipient. Kansans have been urged to remain vigilant and cautious as they open the mail, as the cases continue to develop. Oh, legislative leaders. No mention of party. Interesting. How interesting is that? Alright, we're going to do the DACA articles, and then we're actually going to power it down for the night because, well, number one, it's live chat night. And we'll be getting into that point. But anything we do after that is going to be going into big electoral politics. So this one I can actually get rid of too because it's behind the paywall, Shapiro. But let's do these two with DACA, and then we'll power it down. We'll take care of the rest hopefully tomorrow. Unless the Donald sucks all the oxygen out of the room for the rest of the week again. From the Hill. DACA turns 11 as more dreamers face future without it. Because it's an election year. And they drag this out every single time there's a presidential election. From Raphael Bernal. A growing contingent of dreamers facing a future in the shadows as DACA ages out of effectiveness, even as the program is embroiled in political wrangling and court battles. DACA, formerly the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, marked its 11th anniversary Thursday with little fanfare. Yeah, a lot of these dreamers are like middle-aged now. The program still grants work papers, deferral from deportation, and in some cases international travel allowance to about 580,000 dreamers, undocumented immigrants who arrived at the country as minors. But more and more, the dreamers are falling out of DACA eligibility because of their age, and many who are technically eligible can't sign on because of a legal challenge against the program. DACA was initially conceived in 2012 by the Obama admin as a stopgap to protect dreamers and to court the Latino vote, ahead of expected congressional action on immigration. I'm a little surprised that the Hill left this aside in there. A 2013 comprehensive immigration reform push nearly made it to the finish line, passing the Senate in a bipartisan vote, but key GOP primary upsets soured House leadership on the bill, which never got a floor vote. The legislative logjam that's persisted in the decade since has left DACA as the only means for dreamers to formally participate in the economy and receive protection from deportation. The program was enacted through an executive memorandum by the Obama admin, which has decided to limit eligibility to dreamers who lived in the U.S. for at least 5 years before the memo was issued, setting the cutoff date at June 15, 2007. At this time, it set the eligibility for DACA from ages of 15 to 30, though dreamers as young as 5 at the time could age into the program when they turned 15. The last of those 5-year-olds turned 16 on Thursday, making them the last contingent who aged into DACA eligibility. The oldest DACA beneficiaries turned 41 this year and have lived in the U.S. for at least a quarter century. They're part of the essential fabric of the U.S. at this point, said Rep. Joaquin Castro, former chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. They're teachers and nurses and essential workers. They're supporting themselves and their families and also helping to uphold the American economy. And I think it's unrealistic to just say you're going to deport these millions of people. No, it's unrealistic to say that you're going to try to stretch this program out for another 30 election cycles. To try to keep these people as a court to the Hispanic vote. I hate DACA with a passion. DACA has been one of my biggest gripes since the Obama admin. It has been one of the things that has pushed me. It's part of what pushed me to make this channel to begin with. It's what pushed me out of lifestyle blogging and into political blogging. It's what pushed me to keep going on blogging, especially when they started talking about it, because I had given up my blog for a while. And it is what pushed me into doing the video side of things as well. DACA is probably the cruelest federal program that has ever existed. Every 4 years, these people that Joaquin Castro likes to talk about, that Joe Biden likes to drag out and marionette around and say, hey, look at these people and how unfortunate they are right now, man. They've never known the other home, man. That Hillary Clinton likes to drag out and talk about, that Barack Obama likes to talk about from his bully pulpit. Every 4 years, these people have to be in a position. Will they pass it? Well, they won't pass it. Can I stay in this country? Can I not stay in this country? Can I continue to build my life? Can I not continue to build my life? I have argued, and I do have some sympathy. I know that my my supreme friends in the white variety hate the fact that I have this argument. But I do have a level of understanding for the recipients because they didn't renew their own country. They were brought over here usually by coyotes as minors, put into families that they don't know, and they don't know what it's like to be in their home countries. I say this saying that, yes, politically and honestly, humanitarianly, the most likely outcome, and probably the best outcome, is to do some sort of program that they have to qualify for. They can use the DACA documents as their start to go down the immigration process. But again, as minors, a lot of them didn't have papers coming from their original country. But they've been identified, they've been living under the same identity for, like they said, 25 years. Turn those into green card applications and get them in front of a court. Would be the best way to go back about this. But even deporting every single person in the DACA program would be more humane than leaving them in immigration limbo for the next 40 years. Because then at least they'll know. Like I said, they don't know election cycle to election cycle whether this is going to be the year that it happens. How do you live like that, not knowing what's going to happen, not being able to plan long term? It is one of the cruelest programs I have ranted and raved about DACA for literally 11 years at this point. I can't even imagine. I hate the thought of these people being stuck in this program and the fact that your Joaquin Castros and your Joe Bidens and your Nancy Pelosi's come back out and use you as a political pawn every 4 years. And it's always in a presidential year, too. They don't rock the boat really hugely on midterm years. But they sure love to drag it out on that presidential year. I call it Schrodinger's, what do I call it? Schrodinger's immigration status. They're neither legal nor illegal at the same time. Or immigration limbo is the other one that I like to call it. And the last one from Fox 5 Atlanta, and then we'll go through the live chat, which is, I think, a little bit light tonight, but we'll still go through it. DACA program still in legal limbo for Dreamers. What this means for Georgia, from Kim Leffler. It's been 11 years since the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program officially launched, but the future of the program is uncertain. The Obama-era program was created to protect undocumented immigrants brought into the U.S. as children, providing them with work permits and protection against deportation. First and foremost, work and education. We've had DACA recipients go on to medical school to become dental hygienists, and one owns his own construction company. Tim Isaacson, Executive Director of Immigrant Hope Atlanta, said, Immigrant Hope Atlanta has helped close to 400 people obtain DACA protections here in Georgia. According to the pro-immigration advocacy group FWD.US, Georgia is home to 19,000 DACA recipients. Most of the recipients have been in the country for over 2 decades, and 80% are in the labor force. But the future of the program remains uncertain. That was the point. So again, they could go back out and drag these people out every 4 years and say, hey, if you don't vote for Democrats, these people are going to get deported, and oh no, look at all the hard work they've done. No, we're not actually going to give them legal status and let them go participate in our society, but I mean, look at all the hard work that they do every year. Oh, there are not words to tell you how much I hate DACA. Federal courts are deciding whether the DACA program is legal. Those challenges began during the Trump admin in 2021. A federal judge in Texas said the program could continue for now, but new applications couldn't be approved. A lot of the people who would otherwise be eligible are just sitting and watching. They're still going off trying to go to school and those kinds of things. It's just not easy, as Isaacson explained. And again, the Democrats, wonderful people that they are content to leave these people in immigration limbo, so they can't come back and out and vote, and they do have to wonder every 4 years. So again, they can parade them out and say, look how awful these people are. Look how awful the Republicans are. They want to destroy this poor man's construction company. Terrible, terrible people. I could do a full 2-hour rant just on DACA. That is how much I hate this program. Current DACA recipients must renew every 2 years, but doing so does not provide a pathway to citizenship or permanent legal status. Because of course it doesn't. You really have to stay on top of your renewals, Isaacson said. If you missed that renewal date a few years ago, basically if you did it within a year you were okay, but now you're not even afforded that. If you missed your renewal date, then you're pretty much out of the program. The Supreme Court is expected to eventually take on the issue of DACA's legality. Experts say a decision likely won't be made until 2024 at the earliest. Alright, that is what we have here. We have got a list of things to talk about on election details. We have got some environmental news to talk about. A nice business article about Instant Pot's parent company filing for bankruptcy, but we are out of time for the day, so instead, as we do on Monday nights, we are going to go to the live chat, see what you guys are doing over here. We had a lot of lurkers over on the Rumble side today. Not a lot, well, no chatter over on the Rumble side. Over on the Instagram side, Ventuanette Jackson joined us over there. No comment. 18 people showed up at one point on the Rumble side. No comment. If you guys are watching this over on the Rumble or listening on the audio platform, again, remember, you're always welcome to come back in and weigh in on what you guys think about what we're talking about in the news. And during the week, I do try to get to as much of it as I can while trying to stay on schedule, but sometimes we get sidetracked, of course. Especially when the audience is coming up with different movie titles for bribes. And on the main chat today, the Mogwai starts off the live chat saying the Saturday stream was great. Nice change of pace. Yeah, it was a chill one. And again, we didn't have a lot to go over, but we did finish everything up. Grant asked the question, what made up Black American holiday do you prefer, Kwanzaa or Juneteenth? To which I had said, Kwanzaa. Grant says, for a new game, play Zelda. I'd like to play all the new Zeldas. Is Juneteenth the anti-Father's Day holiday? Probably not. Moga says, too soon. Grant says, why would the stock market close for Juneteenth? That's not where American blacks keep their wealth. No, they keep it in wonderful businesses that they all own because they are just as equal to the rest of us. Don't ban me, YouTube. Mogwai points out correctly, it's a federal holiday. Grant, we were talking about Boyd in the finance article, and I thought that it was a video game company. Apparently it's a casino company. Grant says, Boyd Gaming runs casinos. They own several casinos here in Las Vegas. You wouldn't have heard of them. Their casinos are here or in the south. Mogwai swears the ACLU does some great things, but they should know better. I don't think they do great things anymore. I think they've done great things in the past, but I don't think that they do anymore. Mogwai says, oops, we were wrong. Bring them back. What do you mean they're gone? We just injected them, damn it. And it says, white ghosts on the Titanic who voted for Biden to take out the submersible. Mogwai says, it's not the friendliest area of the ocean. Yeah, and apparently the bad winter made it even worse. Huh. Brybanic says, the Titanic should have never launched. Yeah, I think I'm going to read some more about that. I do. Beam me up, Mr. Scott says, cowards, talking about the letter senders, and points out inkjet printers have micro-identifiers, which I actually didn't know that. I remember like a typewriter, you could tell what it was because the typeface was like a fingerprint. And it was all slightly different from typewriter to typewriter. I guess I didn't realize inkjet printers had that too. Mr. Scott says they'll get him, probably some school kids. Yeah, Dreamers is Obama fodder. Mr. Scott says imported votes, that's all it is. He's wondering about the affirmative action in the guy's construction company. I'd be curious to see what that is. I bet he doesn't employ a single white person. Maybe. And he says, I'm going to start correcting people when they say woke. They actually mean cope. It's copaganda, they say. And Mr. Scott is kind of black-pilled today. Well, I hope that I lifted some of that at least. So I try to make this a no black pill zone, even though I black pill myself, especially on things that I hate. But with that, I think we're done. We're out of here. It's been an interesting show. Again, I'm glad that the DACA thing wound up at the end of the show, because it was going to wind up at the end of the show no matter what. Even if we'd blown through everything else and still had an hour to go, I could spend the whole 2-hour show complaining about DACA. I hate DACA. Oh, do I ever hate DACA. But we're out of here. We're done. My dad texted me while I was on air. Kind of saw a preview of the message. Might be getting a new bed, but I've had my eye on one too. I don't want to bring a new one in until I get the hell out of this closet. Like, I have the money for a new bed, because the one that I'm sleeping on currently is a stack of pallets. But I know that as small and as tight as the quarters are in here, it's just basically I'm going to move one in and I'm going to move it back out. And the one that I have my eye on is a one piece. And again, I don't want to move it in and then back out. You know? Anyway, that's enough about what's going on over here. Keep the personal and the private or personal and professional separate, or at least try to. Where's the outro music? I had it up already. Huh? All right, and with that, we're out of here for the night. Thank you, everybody who came by, hung out, chatted with us tonight. Hopefully we'll get some more starting on Mondays a little bit more often here. Looks like we had some interest in the show, at least, coming through here. I think a few people got scared off by my, at least, ability to entertain the idea of amnesty. Again, I just want the program to end. It's just like the Ukraine war. I don't really give a damn who wins and who loses anymore, because everybody's going to lose at the end of this. I just want people to stop killing each other. But, you know, that's apparently pro-Russia at this point. That's how they see that. But with that, we're out of here. Have a good night. Take care. Go get some dinner. Call your family. hang out with some friends. Let's see who we're going to raid on Twitch if you do choose to stick around to this channel. Let's have a look. Mute, 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 mute. Okay, well, my voice isn't coming through at least, so it won't let me mute, but my voice is not coming through, so we've got that. Oh, Behavior's on. Somebody that I actually advocate for at the beginning of the show. We're going to go over and see Behavior. Mr. Behavior, check him out, and throw him the follow. So if you're lurking somewhere else, get onto the Twitch and come join us over for Mr. Behavior. He does fighting games, and he does political commentary as well, so come back and join us for that, and we will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.